In this video, I'll show you November 8, 2021 at approximately 1 p.m., constitutional activist Sean Paul Reyes entered City Hall in Berwyn, Illinois to conduct a First Amendment audit by filming in protest of signs prohibiting cameras and recording devices without prior approval. Within a minute of entering the building, an employee informed him that it was illegal to video record in City Hall, but Mr. Reyes continued to film.
City administration. Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How can I help you?
What office is this?
I'm the city administrator.
You're the city administrator?
I am.
Hi.
Are you recording me?
I am recording you.
I would ask that you not record me, please.
Well, you're a public official, obviously. You're the city
I'm not
administrator.
elected. And
That wouldn't matter.
Yes, it does.
That
If
you're
you
not
go to our
elected?
doors,
Yeah.
I am not elected.
But that doesn't matter. You still work
If you
for the
go to our
government.
doors,
Still
you
work
will
for the
see
public.
On our doors, we have a sign that says, no recordings are allowed unless we give permission. I am not giving you permission. It is a state law.
I did see that sign.
And then we follow state law here.
It's a state law.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Can we talk outside?
who are you, sir?
I'm Detective Monaco. The problem is, state law, you can't, they got the sign up unless they give you permission to come in City Hall. And
Yeah.
you have to go
Well, I
out
have
the right
business. I
channels.
have business to conduct here, as well as my business of exercising my freedom of press. I'm working on a story on the City Hall
Here, let's go.
for
let's go over
transparency
here
and accountability.
talk. Come on.
Berwyn City Administrator Ruth Green informs Mr. Reyes that she is not an elected official and that he must have her permission before he can record her. In the 2011 case of Glick versus Cuniff, the First Circuit held that, quote, gathering information about government officials in a form that can readily be disseminated to others serves a cardinal First Amendment interest in protecting and promoting the free discussion of governmental affairs. Though not unqualified, a citizen's right to film government officials, including law enforcement officers, in the discharge of their duties. A public space is a basic, vital, and well-established liberty safeguarded by the First Amendment. In applying this case, courts have declined to set a bright-line definition of which government employees are considered government officials and which are not. For example, in the 2018 case of Martin versus Gross, a federal district court in the District of Massachusetts explained that, quote, there is a definitional issue with Glick's use of the term government official. Glick, Jerica, and cases cited therein teach that a police officer falls within the ambit of government official. But who are? These other government officials, the court suggested that the First Amendment public officials doctrine could provide some guidance, but ultimately decided that even though the term government official included a broader scope of public official than law enforcement officer, it would leave it to subsequent cases to define these terms. Similarly, in the 2020 case of Project Veritas Action Fund versus Rollins, the First Circuit refused to define the term government officials and did not cast judgment on Project Veritas's assertion that government officials referred to all civil servants. Quote from an elected official to a public school teacher to a city park maintenance worker. Even though there has been no final decision about the scope of the term government officials, the language in the Glick decision makes it clear that the right to film government officials is not limited to elected officials, as Ms. Green suggested, as it includes law enforcement officers as a type of official that may be filmed. Further, by specifying that individuals have the right to film, quote, government officials including law enforcement officers, the court indicated that the First Amendment protects the right to record. Other government officials as well as police officers. So, it seems likely that a court would conclude that Mr. Reyes's filming of Miss Green was protected by the First Amendment.
We don't want you recording upstairs, so we're not going to record upstairs. Okay?
But sir, this is open to the public. This is not a restricted area. Can I speak to a supervisor?
He's on his way. Right here.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, Sarge. How are you?
Good, how are you? Do you want to speak to someone?
Yeah, I wanted to speak to a supervisor.
City Hall supervisor?
No, well,
Supervisor?
right now that because there's police officers here, I'd like to speak to you just so I can have a understanding. Apparently, there's a law against exercising your freedom of press inside of a city hall.
So, I mean, what's your purpose? Why are you here?
So
you
my
have a business
my
down there?
purpose.
You just videotape
So
it?
my purpose here, I explained it to the detective and this officer. My purpose here is to, I'm working on a story, freedom of press. I'm exercising my freedom of press rights. Freedom of press rights. I'm an independent journalist, and also I'm conducting business as far as doing a Freedom of Information
You got
Act.
a journalist kind of card or something?
A journalist card? No, I didn't make myself one.
Have?
Hey, Sarge.
I want to show you something. Come on.
Yeah, can I just get your name real quick? I never got it.
What's your name?
Oh, I'm not going to give my name, but
Why?
I just choose not to.
Here's my name, Sergeant Valenti. Okay.
Sergeant Valenti?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, why won't you give me your name?
I just don't have to.
Okay.
That's all.
Trying to be polite.
Yeah. No cameras, recording devices without prior approval. Per 720 ILS
Article 4.
Article 4.
Okay.
Is that a state statute?
ILCS is a state statute.
That's a state statute.
Yeah.
Really, I've been in a bunch of city halls and I've never seen that statute before.
Well, we're going to Google it. So
Great. All right, great.
Appreciated. The signage throughout City Hall indicates that Article 14 of Act 5 of Chapter 720 of the Illinois Compiled Statutes grants the government the authority to ban recording inside the City Hall building. However, this article, which contains statutes that define the crime of eavesdropping, does not apply to Mr. Reyes's actions in any way. Section 2 of Article 14 states in part that, quote, a person commits eavesdropping when he or she knowingly and intentionally uses an eavesdropping device in a surreptitious manner. Manner for the purpose of overhearing, transmitting, or recording all or any part of any private conversation to which he or she is not a party, unless he or she does so with the consent of all of the parties to the private conversation. And Section 1 provides some important definitions that help explain the meaning of the eavesdropping law. Although Mr. Reyes's camera would be considered an eavesdropping device, he was not recording in a surreptitious manner, which Section 1 defines as, quote, obtained or made by stealth or deception, or executed through secrecy or concealment, and he did not. Record a private conversation, which is defined as, quote, any oral communication between two or more persons when one or more of the parties intended the communication to be of a private nature under circumstances reasonably justifying that expectation. Because Mr. Reyes was openly recording in a public place where individuals did not have a reasonable expectation of privacy, he did not violate the eavesdropping statute. And it is unclear why the Berwyn government used this article as a justification for a recording ban that prohibited much more First Amendment acts, seemed activity than just eavesdropping. However, it's important to note that the fact that Illinois eavesdropping laws do not support a ban on recording without consent does not necessarily mean that a court would find this policy to be unconstitutional, especially given the fact that a city hall is generally considered to be a limited public forum. For example, in the 2019 case of Sheets v. City of Punta Gorda, the Middle District of Florida determined that a similar restriction did not violate the First Amendment, reasoning that, quote, the purpose of City Hall is to conduct legitimate public business. Ordinance restricts recording within City Hall without the consent of those being recorded. If someone violates the ordinance and refuses to stop recording, the city considers that person a disruption of city business. Considering this evidence, the court concluded that the restriction on unconsented recording was reasonable, quote, considering City Hall's purpose and these circumstances. Therefore, depending on the intent of Berwyn City Hall's recording ban, it is possible that a court could conclude it was a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction on protected First Amendment speech.
Oh, that statute before. That's interesting.
I mean, it's up there, so.
Yeah, I would thank you for looking it up for me. Because that's in direct violation of the United States Constitution.
I don't want you recording me anymore.
You don't want me recording you?
Yeah, I mean, it's my rights, just like you're saying, you know.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
I don't want... Yeah,
don't touch me. What are you doing?
Don't record me.
What's wrong with you? Don't touch me.
I'm not touching you, am I?
Yeah, you did. You just grabbed my arm and grabbed my camera.
To stop you from recording.
To stop me from recording.
You have no right to do that. Please back away. Detective Monaco grabs Mr. Reyes's arm and camera in an attempt to stop him from recording, and he tells Mr. Reyes that he has a right to not be recorded. However, this is not an accurate statement of Illinois law. Now that the interaction has moved on to a public sidewalk, there is almost no doubt that Mr. Reyes was within his rights to film Detective Monaco. First, in the 2012 case of ACLU of Illinois versus Alvarez, the Seventh Circuit agreed with several other circuits who had determined that the right to film in office. Performing their duties in public was constitutionally protected activity, stating that, quote, "The act of making an audio or audiovisual recording is necessarily included within the First Amendment's guarantee of speech and press rights as a corollary of the right to disseminate the resulting recording," and that, quote, "The gathering and dissemination of information about government officials performing their duties in public were protected First Amendment activities." Additionally, Section 2 of the Illinois eavesdropping law explicitly states that, quote, "Nothing in this article shall prohibit any individual from recording a law enforcement officer in the performance of his or her duties in a public place or in circumstances in which the officer has no reasonable expectation of privacy." Under Illinois law, this could be considered a battery, which Section 12.3 of Act 5 of Chapter 585, 720 of the Illinois compiled statutes defines as, quote, "knowingly causing bodily harm to an individual, or making physical contact of an insulting or provoking nature with an individual without legal justification to do so." Similarly, a court could also conclude that this was an unreasonable use of force that violated the Fourth Amendment under the test for excessive force that the Supreme Court established in the 1989 case of Graham versus Connor. In this case, the court held that when determining whether an officer's use of force was excessive, quote, "determining whether the force used to effect a particular seizure is reasonable," under the Fourth Amendment requires a careful balancing of the nature and quality of the intrusion on the individual's Fourth Amendment interests against the countervailing governmental interests at stake, because the only interest that Detective Monaco's use of force seemed to be advancing was his own desire not to be filmed. When Mr. Reyes was legally permitted to do so, it's difficult to imagine that a court would find this use of force to be reasonable.
Back away from me. You're being really hostile. I've been nothing but cordial. You need to step back.
I'm not hostile with you.
You need to step back.
Am I hostile with you?
Yeah, you are. By grabbing me. By grabbing my arm and by grabbing my hand and my camera and trying to rip it out of my hand. Now the respect's gone out the window once you started touching me. You just committed a crime. That's a crime.
I didn't commit a crime.
Yes, it is.
Not when you recorded.
And that's the thing. Look, and that's what people are going to see here. That this officer you just saw him trying to take my phone from me. You just witnessed it.
I tried to stop you from recording me.
That's against the law. This is a constitutionally protected activity. Am I being detained, sir?
Right now, until we get this sorted out.
Yes.
We're talking.
State statute reads you can't video record private conversations or inside without prior notice.
Conversations?
Yeah, you can't record people.
Yeah, that would be audio recording. That's what it refers to. It refers to audio.
You're videotaping an audio.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Okay. So you're gonna have to come with us. They want to sign complaints.
They want to sign complaints?
Yeah,
for what?
You for videotaping people.
For videotaping people?
Yeah,
I want to sign a complaint. He tried to grab my camera.
Did not.
Yes, he did. It's on my body camera and my camera.
So you can't record conversations.
I wasn't recording conversations. You know that. I was not.
How do I know? You won't tell me any information.
I conducted business. I was in there conducting business. I told you I'm a journalist.
And then, are you leaving now?
I'm not going back in there.
With your business?
I'm done with my business. Yes, I am. I conducted my business, and that's all I need to do. You guys can do whatever you'd like, but this is a public place. The courts aren't going to see it that way. I've been very cordial.
I know. Until we. You can keep the phone.
Mr. Reyes was arrested for felony eavesdropping. However, at the station, the charge was changed to the misdemeanor offense of disorderly conduct, and Mr. Reyes was released on bond after being held for 5 hours. As of the writing of this episode, the charge against Mr. Reyes is still pending. 2 days after his arrest, Mr. Reyes held a live-streamed protest where Berwyn Mayor Robert Lavero ripped down the signs at the City Hall entrance prohibiting recording and publicly questioned their constitutionality. Mr. Reyes also filed a formal complaint, and he has made it clear that he will be pursuing a federal lawsuit. Overall, Detective Monaco and the other Berwyn public officials get an F for attempting to justify a blanket ban on recording through the use of an irrelevant state statute, displaying a fundamental misunderstanding of both the First and Fourth Amendments, and for escalating a peaceful exercise of rights into an unnecessary arrest. Much of the conflict surrounding this interaction was derived from the no recording signage that incorrectly referenced Illinois eavesdropping statute. At one point, the Berwyn officers attempted to look up the statute to show Mr. Reyes how it applied to recording in the City Hall, and after looking for some time, the officers eventually misinterpreted the code to justify Mr. Reyes's arrest. Before arresting Mr. Reyes, Sergeant Volanti spent several minutes consulting with someone on the phone, presumably a senior member of the department or a city representative, and it appears as though he was authorized by someone to make the arrest. Considering that both Sergeant Volanti and Detective Monaco consulted with a superior officer before arresting Mr. Reyes, and the fact that Mr. Reyes was arrested based on a sign that bore no legal merit. There's an argument to be made that the city of Berwyn suffers from poor leadership within its police department and legal team. All that said, Mayor Lavero deserves recognition for taking the time to address Mr. Reyes's concerns publicly and for taking down the signs as a gesture of good faith until the city can further clarify its position. It's not often that public officials publicly admit that they may have been wrong, and I commend Mayor Lavero for taking responsibility for his city's mistake. Mr. Reyes gets an A-, because although he could have exercised his right to silence more effectively, he remained calm and collected throughout the encounter, maintained a respectful and professional demeanor, and followed up this interaction with the proper legal action. Although the city of Berwyn failed to properly articulate their ban on recording in the City Hall, there is a strong argument to be made that banning some forms of video recording inside of certain public buildings is constitutional, and courts have routinely accepted the notion that expressive speech is not protected when it disrupts the intended use of public facilities. All that said, it appears as though Mr. Reyes's entire purpose for entering the Berwyn City Hall was to protest that very concept and advocate for judicial reform regarding First Amendment protections inside of public buildings. So it's difficult to fault him for intentionally challenging the legitimacy of these rulings. Mr. Reyes is well known for following up his interactions with formal complaints and federal lawsuits, and this arrest could potentially offer him the opportunity to carry his activism over into the courtroom. This interaction is a testament to the notion that First Amendment audits can. Thank you very much for watching the video. Subscribe our channel for next video.